All right, let's get started then. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to attend our very first Amaka webinar. The subject is obviously accounting tech, the key to unlocking better margins and work-life balance. My name is Martin Chi. I'm the co-founder and CFO of Amaka, but also a CPA who's worked for many years in public practice. Just before we start, a little bit about Amaka, if you aren't so familiar with us. We're a global accounting integration and automation company. We build accounting integrations that connect point of sale systems and e-commerce platforms to accounting software such as Xero, QuickBooks, and MYOB. We also provide analytics and reporting tools to a range of businesses and institutions. Today, we're fortunate enough to have with us an amazing panel of guests, if I do say so. Rebecca Mihalik. Rebecca is the head of accounting for the APAC region for Practice Ignition, where she helps to define product content and strategy. In addition, she was a founding partner of the firm Aptus Accounting and Advisory, which won Innovator of the Year at the 2018 Australian Accounting Awards for their focus on tech advisory and efficient business services. Also with us is Omar Khan. Omar has spent many years in customer success within the accounting, technology, and finance space. He is currently the head of customer success for the APAC region at practice workflow management software company Karbon, where he helps to ensure that customers are able to fully realize the value that that product has to offer. And lastly, we have Sydney Casuela. Sydney is the COO and co-founder of Pop Business, a cloud-based accounting firm providing a range of accounting advisory and compliance services to individuals and SMEs. Pop Business is at the forefront of accounting innovation, and actually in 2019, they won Tech Innovator of the Year at the Australian Accounting Awards. Well, welcome guys. You're all looking well. Have you been staying sane? Do you feel like you're managing good work-life balance at the moment?
Just doing our best.
you're all smiling, which is a good start.
Yeah.
No, it's been great. I think work-life balance is a myth, but yeah, work has been great.
I was going to say that. I think in public practice, work-life balance is something that just, that doesn't really exist. It's like, unless you're incredibly disciplined or you don't have kids, then, you probably don't have work-life balance. But look, thank you so much for taking the time today, guys. Really appreciate it. We don't have a huge amount of time, so I'm pretty keen to get stuck into it if you guys are ready to go. And just a note for those of you guys that are listening in, we will also have an opportunity to answer some questions at the end of the session. So hopefully we'll have some time to address some of those as they come through. So I mean, better margins and work-life balance. I think, we sort of touched on that it's challenging at the best of times. We've got a few questions that we'd like to work through just to sort of tease out some insights that you guys have from your own businesses and also from your own experiences. And hopefully there'll be something of value that you guys listening in can take away from the session. First question for you, Rebecca. How have you found that the customer engagement cycle has changed? And given that we're sort of working remotely now, how can accountants build and maintain rapport remotely when you can't physically attend someone's office or organize a coffee catch up with them?
It's probably been one of the more difficult things to actually manage during this process, is being able to keep up that higher level of client interaction while still getting work done. Because I wouldn't say that us being in lockdown means we're not talking to our clients anymore. This constant availability for Zoom meetings and everyone being a lot more comfortable means I feel like I'm setting my whole entire day now in back-to-back Zoom meetings, because they're just actually much easier to organize than having someone to come into the office or go visit a client. We realistically have a lot more hours in the day to spend with our clients now. So it's that maintaining that balance between meetings and actually getting work done. And I think that when you've got Zoom meetings in place, people are far more likely to waste time in that Zoom meeting. So agendas seem to go out the window now. But so I don't think there's been a problem actually maintaining that client relationship. We've absolutely been able to do it. But the engagement cycle for us has definitely changed when we're talking about that real physical compliance, official part of the engagement. We're engaging a lot more regularly than we ever have. We were always an annual engagement firm where we would sit with our clients, reset the engagement, and make sure that they're on board with all the services we're offering and we're comfortable with the pricing. Now, because things are changing so rapidly, so from week to week, month to month, the services we're offering our clients, grant applications, cash flow reviews, all of these items are changing so quickly that we are running our official engagement process more regularly to add additional services, change our pricing, and making sure that we're always covered for everything that we do. So it's been really important to us that we've been able to do that efficiently with tech. So being able to roll out bulk engagements for new services for a group of clients has made all the difference to making sure that we're actually covered and being able to do it efficiently.
Great. And Sydney, keen to get your input on this one in terms of this question in relation to work-life balance. I mean, as Rebecca said, you're kind of like on call 24/7. Is that kind of affected the work-life balance that you might otherwise have because people just feel like you're constantly available because, you know, you're sitting at home not doing anything?
I think we've been quite lucky in this respect. Haven't been getting too many out of office hours calls, thankfully, and fingers crossed. But I think, you know, certainly given people can't visit you physically anymore, but, you know, Pop Business was cloud first to begin with. So a lot of our clients were used to that 9 to 6 p.m. allotted time to get in touch with us. But yeah, it has been a challenge to maintain customer engagement. So, you know, tools and some tech that we've been into is that we've been using for some time is like, how do we improve the booking process? How do we make sure that if they try to get in touch with us, what can we do to make sure that we can respond in a timely manner? So I think bulk emails make a huge difference for new engagements, and yeah, it's finding these little tech hacks to save you time on the admin.
And Omar, in terms of the tech, do you think that in terms of the client rapport side of things, like things have been made a lot more efficient than they have been, like in particular with Karbon? What's your experience been with firms in terms of, from start to, when you're actually engaged with a client, has that process become more efficient?
Yes. No, this is a great question. What really, accounting, like any other business, is basically a relationship business. As Rebecca mentioned, there are definitely challenges, but it also, you can see it as an opportunity that now we have more time in day. As Sydney mentioned, is if you're using a right tech stack, how you can automate a lot of things to be more proactive. And I think that's where I see the opportunity. But on the flip side, I was talking to one of the director of firm yesterday, and he raised a really good point that a lot of firms then end up actually overdoing the tech stack. So like not running after every new shiny object, because there's hundreds of apps are coming on a daily basis and all of them solving great things. So it's really how you be more thoughtful what your business need in terms of building your client relationships and rapport remotely, and also like really doing it well.
Awesome. I think we might move on to the next question. Now, pricing models. I mean, we've sort of seen pricing models evolve over time, particularly in the accounting industry, from sort of traditional hourly rates to more value-based and fixed fee pricing. Rebecca, what's your sort of experience been with managing that kind of transition, and how do you preserve your margins in situations where you might have this really sudden onset of work that you didn't necessarily budget for at the start of the year. So in particular, with some of the COVID related work, some of the business grants, how do you make sure that you're pricing it right and that you haven't sold yourself short in terms of the margin side of things?
I think that accountants get a little bit too concerned about this point of view. I think most of us know how long things take. We've been doing this for a while. There's somebody in the business has a pretty good idea that even with the new work, we know, yes, we've got to assess financial drops. So how do we do that? We need to look at revenue versus before. We know how long these things are going to take. If anything, particularly with the COVID grant work, a lot of that ended up taking us less time than we anticipated because the tech around us got so good at helping us. So if anything, the fee estimates we put together actually probably had some fat in them, which was great for us for a change. If you approach your fixed fee pricing, which is what we've done from the beginning, in a very, just a common sense way, if you get partway through a job and you know that you have underpriced because something's happened. So we know how long certain things take us. We know what our average hourly rates we want them to be. So if something comes up that is blowing that out, if WIP is being blown out and you're going to lose money because you've gone in fixed fee, you need to just make sure that your engagements have clauses in them that allow you to stop, go back to the client, explain why it's going to cost more, and then get their sign off on moving forward. It's just the same approach that any other business takes. So when you start looking at your firm as a business instead of this mythical service provider, this is how businesses work. It's how construction works. It's how anything else works out there. When WIP blows out or there is a change or a variation, the service provider stops, tells the client, and moves on. And that's what we need to do as accountants and need to get much better at.
And Sydney, in terms of your firm, I know you guys are, in terms of pricing, quite aggressive. Want everyone to be able to access accounting services and democratize accounting generally. So have you found that at times it can be difficult, particularly on the fixed fee pricing side of things, that sometimes things might take longer, just because, the specific circumstances of the client, or how have you sort of managed pricing things generally when, the task might be a little bit uncertain or a little bit more uncertain than normal?
Yeah, great question. And I think as a relatively young business, Pop Business have only been operating B2B services for a couple of years now. And, when you begin a practice, you think, how are you going to acquire new customers? And usually it's a race to the bottom. So you're undercutting the competition, and just you find yourself in a place where, the cash flow is probably not there to help you sustain further growth. So yeah, from the outset, we, for the most part, we moved away from traditional hourly rates, and that sort of race to the bottom pricing. Given the thought behind it was the level of uncertainty it can provide our customers. It acts as a possible barrier to accepting a proposal. So we have employed, and similar to Rebecca's point, it's like, we've been doing this for a while now, so we should know how long things should take, and hopefully factor in any blowouts that may come to the fore. So we do employ a mixture of value-based and fixed fee-based pricing, because we really believe that it provides the customer the ability to make an on-the-spot decision on whether our services will deliver the solution to the problem that they're experiencing. So yeah, I think the better that a practice can understand what goes into the job and how the value is perceived by the customer, they can pretty much put together a pricing strategy for their company that would make sense for the short-term and the long-term growth.
Have you had situations where you thought you were priced well, or you thought you'd priced something adequately and that it didn't turn out being that way for whatever reason?
I'm keen to get Rebecca's opinion on this as well, and yours too, Martin. Bookkeeping.
Yes, definitely.
Becomes such a point. people argue that it's not really value add, and it's very compliant heavy, and it's how do you price that when someone offshore is charging ridiculous pricing, whereas onshore the traditional accounting firms are charging 150, 200 per hour. So it's like what works for your businesses is a big question that everyone asks.
We have that same issue with bookkeeping, and you have to figure out why you're doing the bookkeeping. I think if you're traditionally an accounting firm, why have you done the bookkeeping? Is it to generate more revenue and you're going to run it as a loss leader because you don't want to offshore, or you don't want to actually have those cheaper rates? Then that's fine. But if you want to offer it as a standalone bookkeeping service, then you can't have accountants doing bookkeeping. You can't have that for a few reasons. Accountants want to get paid too much money for bookkeeping work is the first problem, but they also don't do it as well. Like great bookkeepers do a really good job of bookkeeping. They're more efficient. They know what they're looking at, and they do that job better than what we do. They're actually quite separate roles. So if you want to offer a bookkeeping service, then you need to really run it, I feel, as a separate bookkeeping model with its own KPIs, own rate of return, own charging models. It needs to be run separately, which is not necessarily something that we're doing fully now, but are starting to move towards. Bookkeeping's always been a bit of a integrated part of our current offering for a handful of clients, but more and more are wanting it from us. So now we're looking about carving it out and actually making it that standalone business model, very separate from the accounting function.
Yeah, I think my experience has been, from the bookkeeping side of things, there's been enormous price pressure on that. That side of business and that service offering, and even more so now since offshoring is so prevalent. But also that in conjunction with the gains that we've seen come from tech and using the likes of Xero now, where the automation aspects are just getting better and better each year. And sort of my experience has been that I don't mind offering bookkeeping at very competitive rates, and making sure that the margins on the tax stuff is quite good. So from my perspective and what we've done in the firm is that we've always tried to get the bookkeeping work to make the tax and compliance work a lot easier, because it can be challenging when you're managing a relationship with the bookkeeper and also managing the relationship with the client. And if the engagement is not really concise, sometimes you can find situations where you're stepping on each other's toes, and those boundaries can be a bit blurred from time to time. But yeah, from my own personal experience, I don't mind doing the bookkeeping at a fairly low margin or even loss leading, provided that you've got the tax and compliance side of things and you're very certain of what your margins are going to be, because the work is generally very, very, very certain. Next, moving on to the next question, which I wanted to ask Omar. You can change the slide, Laura. Forward, not backwards. In terms of Karbon and workflow management platforms generally, and probably following on from a lot of the COVID-related work, which wasn't necessarily anticipated, how have you found firms using workflow management platforms? Have they been able to manage their deadlines a lot better, and even where they're subject to great fluctuation from unforecasted workflow?
Yeah. Now, just going back to the discussion of value pricing, I think what it drives really is moving away from the transactional approach of already, like always, talking to clients about justifying the cost and the time spent on a particular job. But it's for me, I think what I hear from the firm owners, that it's not really a switch of a button that you switch to fix or value pricing, or it's a transition. Each firm have their own journey, and it also depends on your services you provide, and there will always going to be a place for special projects and things like that where you have to come to a time. But I think where the value pricing, and that will lead to the question you're asking, is the collaboration and partnership, and really driving the outcome base, what we call it in customer success. So customer success is all about driving outcome for your clients who are using your applications and softwares. And I think this is no different when it comes to driving that value and outcome for your clients. And workflow, and when you have that, getting done, like, your client is happy with what, value you're going to provide, and you have, the aspect of uncertainty of how much it's going to cost is out of the way, then you can focus on driving value, and that's where the workflow comes in. So a few examples of it: really standardizing your processes and workflows. There are a few benefits. One is it drives, of course, efficiency. It drives the quick turnaround time, and of course the margins, because if you're not really efficient, of course, then it actually costing you more. And your first question was about the engagement cycle, and I think when you look at that, the process and standardization of these workflows, you need to look at the whole engagement cycle, all the way from like onboarding, for example, where Practice Ignition comes in, proposals and all that, and then delivery of the work, where Karbon comes in. Automation saves enormous amount of hours, like handing over jobs, rather than actually you have to chase your team members. It automatically hand overs the jobs to the team, relevant team member for review, and so on and so forth. One of the biggest thing I hear a lot is chasing up clients. Firms spend hours of chasing up clients, documents, and things like that. And I have actual, some of the firms shared me how much I'll talk to you in detail. The other thing is really having a centralized place to understand and visibility of work and collaboration. So especially in the remote environment, who is doing what, how much each team member have the workload, how we can manage and flip things around in that sense. And that visibility piece is a critical part, because then that, okay, well, what's the capacity of my team? How much more work the team can have? Do I need to hire more people? And all of these questions are part of that process. I was speaking to a firm owner in WA recently, and he's been working with Karbon for like about a year now, and through optimizing his workflows, he mentioned that they actually improved efficiency and their turnaround time 50%, right? Which means, of course, they have capacity for more work to intake, and of course more margins. And what it helps at the end of the day is 30% improve their year-on-year growth. So all of this workflow and having to be able to standardize and automate a lot of these things and tasks and collaboration plays a huge role in how you drive efficiency, productivity, margins, and most importantly, your revenue as well.
Sydney, on that front, in terms of the work-life balance aspect, when the workload is subject to a bit of fluctuation, how do you guys manage that internally? Like, is it a case of just working more hours, or have you found that, in terms of workflow management platforms, that it's easy to sort of divide tasks, reallocate resources, set up new workflows? And what's been your experience?
I'm a huge advocate for workflow management platforms that do help practices find efficiencies and time savings. It's a huge thing, and I know Karbon and Practice Ignition, they do a great job being market leaders in that aspects. And for us, we've one of our co-founders is a CTO, so he built something just internally for us, which does help us figure out where our capacity is at. But the issue is, when you have these great fluctuations in work that is unexpected, it does throw a spanner in the works. And I think it's very hard to manage that. We don't have the perfect answer, of course. We're still relatively young in our business journey, but the way that we've coped with it this year was just to hire more and hire more, and then making sure that there isn't any time lost for double work or inefficiencies. And communication is a huge thing, especially when everyone's in lockdown, making sure that effective communication is happening on a regular basis to keep everyone engaged and motivated. So I guess work-life balance in this time, in this era, is kind of hazy, to be best. It just bleeds in, like your work bleeds into personal time, and personal time bleeds into work time. So it's a big challenge, but I think it just comes back to effective communication and having the right tech to make the painful things a little easier.
Cool. Moving on to the next question, and particularly from the practice management, practice ignition side of things. Rebecca, have there been some unexpected tasks that you've seen reap benefits of automation? And have there been any unexpected time savings for tasks which you might not have thought would have benefited so much from automation, but ended up saving lots and lots of time?
I think there's always that process when you see a shiny new toy. You have to determine whether or not this is actually solving a problem that you currently have, or if you're going to get an actual time saving out of it. We, before investing in any tech, actually try to quantify that as well. It's like, well, this is how long this is currently taking. This is what it's physically costing us in dollar values for the person who's doing that. And then the opportunity cost of them working on something else. So is there then that drive to then invest in new tech? But I'm constantly surprised at what comes out of tech firms nowadays with time savings. Like, they're all trying to really push that limit on the heavy lifting that they can do for us, which will occur, even while we're asleep in some regards. So that we can just do more of what we like to do, which is, I personally didn't go to university and do my CA to pump out a bunch of tax returns for the rest of my career. I wanted to make a bit of a difference in the small business world and with my clients. So now tech has been able to do that. Some of the best things that came out of it, even when, joining PI, every step along the way, the automation pieces that they're trying to pull out of there, but being able to send an engagement off to a client and then it automatically fill workflow has been fantastic for us. Like that automation piece, it means nothing gets forgotten because the client signs an agreement for these services, pushes straight into our workflow. That's fantastic. And then assigning it out to the appropriate people. And then even moving beyond that, the advisory tech that we use, being able to run alerts on key performance indicators across our whole entire client base has meant that we're actually able to identify the clients that need to hear from us without checking all of their files all the time because we're alerted. So that's that, when we first tried to push our clients to the cloud all the way back in the day, like 10 years ago, like, well, this means we're in the same file, so we can give you advice all the time. But that actually required us to go in the files all the time, which we weren't doing because we're busy. This new system of being able to alert us when something's going on with our clients, which a lot of the advisory tools are doing now, and even Xero themselves are putting in a light touch way, means that we can actually fulfill that promise we made 10 years ago without absorbing a lot of our time. So I'm really excited about where all this is going. The AI behind it all, automation, is just getting better every day.
Sydney, you got any specific examples within your practice where you've sort of seen some unexpected tasks reap the benefits of automation?
Yeah, certainly. A couple of tools that we've, reaped the benefits of over the past couple of years is Calendly, which we use for booking accountants' time in. For the accountants out there that know sometimes the back and forth that goes into finding a time to speak. They might call out of the blue, but you're busy, or you call them back and you try to find a time. So, or you're sending an email back and forth. We found Calendly to be an effective tool, which connects to your calendar, and the person looking to book in a time with you can see your availabilities. They can sync it up to their own availabilities, and away you go. You meet at the right time, and Bob's your uncle. So that's a pretty good tool that we use. Other than that, during meetings, usually you have to appoint someone to take the minutes or the notes. I think I've seen a few tools out there that have done machine learning where they type as you speak, so you can have a whole transcript of your whole meeting, and no one has to type it up. We use Otter. We found that quite useful. But yeah, there's heaps out there, and I think to Rebecca's point, choosing the tool for a problem that you have in the business is key to making sure that you don't waste the time in investing in the research and trying to do the change management, because I think we spoke previously about change management being a huge challenge for a lot of businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that rolls into our next question, which sort of specifically deals with implementation. And I think, as you touched on, change management obviously is a big part of that, managing how people have to alter the pre-existing workflow to accommodate new software, and how you're shaping people's behaviors in the way that they might work within the firm or work on a particular task, can be challenging. So interested to get your thoughts, Omar, in particular around this, because Karbon obviously is quite a big holistic piece of software. How do you find businesses go with implementing generally and implementing new software generally, and what kind of challenges are they facing when they're doing that?
Yeah, I definitely echo what Sydney said. I hear this and see this all the time. In my point of view, 20% is about the software, 80% is about change management. And I think that's where the biggest challenge firms have to go through. That's why it's very important, as Rebecca mentioned, that not running after the shiny objects, really understanding the business problem and actually being able to see what can solve. And it really drives the business results. In Karbon, it's not just a workflow management, it's also a collaboration tool. And we have one of the very favorite part of the product is triage, which basically, email on steroid. You connect and collaborate through your email. And I have this dad joke when I talk to my clients, is that Karbon should set up email quit line. Because it's very difficult for firms who actually have all their work and they, spending on Gmail or Outlook. Taking their team away from it is a hard task. And I think that's where the change management comes in. And most of these firms, what I noticed, that they understand the principles of change management. They are very thoughtful of what their business need and what applications are going to help to get them and drive those business goals, and implement them with good change management principles, have an enormous amount of results.
Rebecca, in terms of how you guys approach implementing new software, is there like a formula or a set series of steps that you guys typically go through?
The key thing that we try to do is make sure that we have a champion. So who is going to be that number one person who knows absolutely everything about the product? They don't have to be the only person who uses it, but they need to be our internal champion who is responsible for the implementation, the training, the updates, and just knowing exactly what it does all the time. And the biggest thing we've learned in the last 2 years is that person should not be me all the time. So I've started to really farm that out. Even though I'm really excited about the tech, I cannot know everything all the time anymore. I've had to start sharing the love, but that makes a huge difference to the successful implementation, because then it becomes somebody's project, and that means that's their KPI, it's their project. They're going to take that personally to make sure it's run out. And I'm actually happy for less people to be involved in an implementation, then more people at those first stages. Once we've made the business decision that it's appropriate, the less cooks that are involved in actually making it work often means it's actually more successful.
When you're appointing someone to champion that particular software or that particular project, do you have like are they educating the others on how to use it? Are they presenting? Are they providing updates? Like, how do you sort of manage that part of the process where you're getting everyone to jump on board and use it in a particular way?
Yeah, they have to do all of those things that you've mentioned. So they'll have to understand the product themselves completely, run an implementation. Depending on what the tool is, there'll have to be documents around or a procedure around how we will use it in the business, who's responsible for what at what point, and where to go to find help. If there's any customization that's just for our business that you couldn't easily find in that app's online help themselves, and then to run the training, and then to touch back again with the team to make sure that this is being used in this way, because there will be an expectation by the directors that once we've assigned this project to somebody, this is how it's going to run out. So they'll have to actually make sure that happens.
In Sydney, how do you guys approach implementing new software at POP?
Yeah, very similar to Rebecca. I think there's a lot of frameworks out there in change management, implementation, but the characteristics, I think, going back to who that champion should be, they should be very versatile. They should be very adaptable, very capable. Effectively, the rise of the term intrapreneur comes to mind, because they need to be, align so many different levels and facets of the business, not just from like a tool standpoint, but it's, company objectives, division objectives, like how does this fit in everything? And they also have to deal with, the conflict management that comes with it, and making sure all stakeholders have buy-in. So it's not an easy challenge to overcome, which is why, I think, Rebecca, as you said, you were mainly doing it yourself, and then to find that person that can take that off your hands, it's definitely a challenge. And I think that's why, just going off on a tangent, but talent acquisition is important to ensure that you can move your business into the next stage as well. So implementing a new software, it's a big challenge, and I think finding the right person is key.
Just to add to what Sydney mentioned, I think a couple of things. One is really understanding and making sure the team understanding the why behind it. So it's not that, we're implementing a business because it's going to do and does something really cool. It's really, here's our business objectives for next 12 months, 3 years, and this is why we're doing it. And the second thing is having very clear, sort of like drawing the line in the sand that when everyone is going to switch, so that there's no lag or there's no dragging. Setting up the clear expectation for everyone in the team that we are all shifting, and of course, providing them support what they need to be successful.
In terms of new software that you guys have found that you've implemented generally in recent times, have you found they've been conducive to work-life balance, or have you found that you're more margin focused when you're implementing new software? Like, have you ever sort of made that consideration when you're implementing new software? Like, of the last few pieces of software that you guys have implemented, in terms of work-life balance and margins, has been more about margins, or has work-life balance sort of benefited from implementing new software?
I'd say work-life balance has been the focus of our most recent tech apps that we put into the business. They've all been around how can we make things more efficient. And Sydney mentioned it before, we've used Calendly lightly before lockdown, but since lockdown it's become the thing that we use, and it became so important to actually drive our clients back to this booking so that I could actually put those parameters around when I was willing to talk to people. It's like, this is this is it. Giving myself a lunch break. You know, when you're working at home, you don't, you know, if you get really stuck in it, you forget to get up and go have lunch. That is now in my calendar. I have it blocked out because otherwise I'm really cranky in the afternoon. So trying to make sure that those things happen has been more important with some of the tech that we've implemented more recently. And, you know, also the ease of implementing the tech and the support from the app provider has been really important on that end as well. We needed to make sure, even though we have a champion, that wasn't going to drive anybody mad and they were going to have a great support process. Those have been the two key things that have been drivers around choosing what tech we're putting in at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that. I know one of my staff, she's got an app that's like, you know, a bit more well-being focused. And I think in terms of work-life balance, you know, sometimes, you know, those apps, like in public practice, generally everything's running at 1,000,000 miles an hour, but sometimes the apps that are like actually stop and pause and think about yourself or think about, you know, what's happening and be a bit more present, they're really, really useful. But I know one of my staff has got one that's even just like, stop looking at the screen for like 20 seconds, which, you know, that obviously, you know, not just good for your eyes, but just in terms of focus, generally you find that it's almost a bit counterintuitive. It's like stop doing work to do something else, but actually it makes you more productive. Sid, did you have any thoughts on, you know, new software in terms of work-life balance, or, you know, you guys have been a bit more margin focused in terms of how you sort of identify and procure new software?
At the start of the year, we did implement, because our pop business, I mostly look after ops and sales. And at the start of the year, we looked into integrate Pipedrive in part of our, you know, sort of sales process. And that was a big challenge. But, you know, we did the research. So step one was researching and figuring out how this would solve a business problem. And after careful consideration, we went ahead. But that change management of introducing a new system and a new process and a new way of doing things, certainly that was a challenge. You know, reminders, weekly catch-ups, figuring out what's not, you know, working out. But now it's gotten to a great stage where things are running smoothly. It's talking to our other systems. So I'd call that implementation a success. But in terms of work-life balance, I think it's more so work-life enjoyment. You know, it's like, you know, now they're using a tool that is saving them time for, like, for instance, we also use RouterJet, which is like a triage tool. It automatically assigns a lead to a salesperson. So instead of all the leads coming through a mailbox and then one salesperson grabbing this one and that one and then that one and then that one, and then this tool sort of just did it automatically. So, you know, the salesperson's workflow just built up over time. So yeah, I mean, that was one implementation recent for us. Yeah.
Cool. I think we're done with all the questions. Did you guys have any final points that you wanted to add? I don't think we'd actually received any questions through the through the chat box, so you guys are off the hook in terms of having to answer any ad hoc stuff that our listeners have sent through. But did you guys want to add anything? Any other thoughts or comments?
I think when it comes to managing work-life balance, you're the master of your own destiny. So if you want to have a good work-life balance, then you need to put in those stricter requirements around you. And there's tech out there that helps you do it. We've mentioned a lot of them today. Calendly's been my biggest tool that's helped me manage that. But while you're at home, it is much harder because you're drawn to just wander back into the study, or for a lot of us, just wander back to the dining table where you've left your laptop. So to make sure I'm not doing that, particularly over a weekend, it's that forced closure, shut down, and pack away of items instead of just being lazy about it. So it's not as easy for me to jump up and jump back on my laptop to answer a quick question. And it's all really about that that self-control and our own requirements for what you need in your life. Don't let it invade your world, and be honest with your clients about the fact that you're not going to respond to them outside of hours. That's communication is key.
Sid, Omer, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think that work-life balance point is very crucial and important, especially nowadays where a lot of people have less freedom. So, look after your own your mental health. Reach out, seek the help you need in terms of support systems. Tech is one point. Tech does find like all these cool little hacks and time savings, but similar to Rebecca's point, you are the master of your life. So design it in a way that you can break away from work and really have that balance if you so desire. But if you're a workaholic and you just love work, then just work then. But you do find time, and I think that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just really seeing it as an opportunity as well. And, tech plays an important role. It comes down to that how you utilize it to free up your time, utilizing automation and, a lot of, artificial intelligence work, which is, coming in next few years, going to ramp up. So really using that to your advantage to free up your time. And making sure that you're focusing on the areas where you need to drive that work-life balance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's. I mean, we're kind of always plugged in these days, and it's very difficult just to switch off. It's literally your laptop's there, it's on the couch, it's on the table, it kind of follows you around everywhere you go. I know with me, with young kids, it follows me around, and you open it up and put Play School on from time to time too. So it's very useful tool, but it's like a ball and chain that follows you around and works constantly there as well. So you do need that self-control and that discipline to force yourself to try to have that work-life balance. I think that's it, guys. I think we're out of time. But thank you so much for joining me. It's been a really great discussion. It's been really great to hear your sort of thoughts and insights into work-life balance generally. And accounting tech is obviously such a massive space. So look forward to catching up with you guys again soon. For those of you guys that are listening, just feel free to apply to our Amaka advisors community, which that can provide your practice with a personalized listing within our directory. Our directory is browsed by thousands of small business owners every week looking for accounting professionals. And with our support team also using this to match you to business owners during support calls. We can line up your expertise with different apps to different clients. And also one last thing, we're going to try to do this on a rolling basis. So we're keen to get some input on what you guys think would be a good topic to explore next. So we'll be pushing out a Zoom poll for you guys to vote on. But thanks again for attending, everyone. I hope you managed to get something out of that, and all the best for the rest of the week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, Sydney. See you, Omar.
Thanks.
Thanks, Manu.
Be well.